So let's stop using words like monster and evil, shall we? So in this world, especially now more than ever, a word narcissism that no one ever used to use is now a dirty word, not just to some people, to lots of people. It feels like a shaming word to some people. And as the self-aware narcissism social media community gets bigger and bigger, there's also a community of ever-growing folks who walk around saying, yeah, I'm narcissistic. And their crusading point is that we're misunderstood. And you're the bad ones for thinking that our behavior is a problem or that we're a problem. Folks, if you haven't figured it out yet, on this YouTube channel, I focus on survivors. Now, I have worked with lots of clients in therapy, lots, who have narcissistic personalities. I've worked with them past, present, and future. I did good work with them. I do good work with them. I will always do good work with them. I have narcissistic people in my life I still have to maintain relationships with, and I do so with what I believe is compassion. I know that. And this knowledge about narcissism, a topic I have been researching for nearly 25 years and bringing into clinical practice, is what I'm able to use to support survivors in a realistic way, to give survivors a context for their healing. But because social media and the internet only work when they're black and white, bad versus good, good versus evil, it's impossible anymore to have nuanced conversations. So there's a few issues here, though. So let me take them on here. One is the whole psychopathy versus narcissism issue and the whole issue of the severity of narcissism. Now, there are some of you watching this channel, maybe even watching this video, who are maintaining relationships with people, family, intimate, partner, workplace, whatever. You're maintaining relationships with people whose personalities are much more severe. You may be in relationships with narcissistic people that are characterized by physical abuse. And to that end, we have resources that we've put in the video notes. Please use them. These are relationships characterized by danger, coercive control, exploitation, trauma. These are dangerous relationships. This is beyond you feeling psychologically unsafe. You, the people around you, may simply not be safe, physically, psychologically, or anyways. While the personality traits, psychopathy, narcissism, all of it may be the same, the entitlement, the low empathy, the grandiosity, the arrogance, the pathological selfishness, the emotional and behavioral dysregulation, when this stuff gets severe, it's not safe in any way, regardless of whether it is psychological danger or physical danger or all of the above. And despite all the terror and coercion, even these severe relationships are confusing. But the things that are happening in the relationship are often severe enough that they track more. You can encode them more as bad, scary things. And even if a person in one of these severe relationships, because of things like trauma and complex trauma, you don't clock it clearly because that's what trauma does to us, other people looking at it might, especially if they were told or witnessed what was happening. You may be a little bit more likely to get help, not always, but a little more. But many of you watching this channel are in more moderate or even milder narcissistic relationships. Now we are not talking about psychopathy, which, by the way, is less than 1% of the population. We are still talking, though, in any narcissistic relationship about some lack of psychological safety. We are still talking about a relationship that in the long run is not good for your health, your growth, your well-being. However, we are also talking about a relationship where you are confused because some of the good days are decent or normal. You may have recently laughed at a TV show together. This might be a person who is good with the kids, or who your kids look forward to spending some time with them sometimes. You may enjoy this person's sense of humor sometimes. You can look back with this person at a mix of memories, some that weren't terrible, some that were even good. And this is why it gets messy. In one school of thought, a school of thought I not only don't agree with, that I've fought in my career to push back on, that this kind of relationship of toxic stuff kind of being mixed in with normal stuff has often been viewed through the perspective of relationships are compromise. You have to take the good with the bad. The problem is that in these really narcissistic antagonistic relationships, this isn't just an occasional disagreement about socks on the floor, or whether your partner wants to watch a different TV show, or whether you should get pineapple on a pizza. It's not about a parent who sometimes sort of turns her nose at how you dress. It's not about a father who says things like, well, it was easier back in my day. Narcissistic relationships are more problematic. It's more consistent with the selfishness, the entitled, manipulative, rageful, vindictive, arrogant, unempathic dynamics. A narcissistic relationship is a place where you cannot safely be yourself. You are shamed if you do show up as yourself. It's a relationship, like I said, where you never quite feel psychologically safe, and you blame yourself, and you wonder what is wrong with you. It's not just about being frustrated about how the dishwasher is being loaded. There is really no way to compromise, find middle ground, or even have a place to be seen with someone who thinks you are to blame for most of the problems that happen in the relationship, and who maintains a narrative that you are the problem and they are not. There really is no way to find a middle ground or compromise with someone who gaslights you and shuts you down whenever you try to share your experience. Even if you have even if you have really good days with them, there's no finding compromise. You tend not to try to find compromise on good days. You tend to look for it on the ones that aren't so good. But here's where it gets tricky. As the world and the discourse in the world is getting more and more and more toxic every day, and the world of people talking about narcissism gets bigger and bigger and bigger, I gotta tell you, I'm not comfortable with some of what I've been reading. And for two reasons. First, because it's uncivil. And second, because it actually harms survivors even more than they're being harmed. The main issue that I have a problem with is this need to characterize narcissism or people with narcissism as monstrous or evil, or people who have personalities that are evil or are monsters. Let's slow down, everyone. First of all, stay focused on the behavior, because the behavior is the issue. It's the lying, it's the betrayal, it's the blame shifting, it's the triangulation, it's the vindictiveness, it's the silent treatment, it's the screaming, it's the agitation, it's the making you feel like you're 1 inch high. These are all behaviors, they're not okay. But the dismissal of someone as evil and monstrous, really only in the most psychopathic, inhumane cases, should we be using those words, right? Again, we keep going down the tricky elevator here. Here's where it gets even more tricky. I know I'm not your only source of narcissism information. In fact, some of you, this might be the first damn video you're watching. And if you are getting a steady diet of all narcissistic people are monsters, then you're looking for a monster. You're looking to see, is this the monster who's at Sunday dinner at the table, or in your marriage, or in your workplace? And you're like, they're here. I don't see the monster part. You may see some really bad, hurtful, icky, intolerable, unacceptable behavior mixed in with nostalgia, halfway decent moments, full way decent moments, and say, I'm having trouble seeing this person as a monster. What's wrong with me? I must be codependent. That's why I can't see them as a monster. No. You are not codependent. That is not what's happening. What you're doing, it's actually extraordinarily healthy and tricky, is you're seeing a person holistically. And yeah, it's complicated. Because here's a rub, folks. Understanding of narcissism is what I believe. It's only useful insofar as it's forwarding your healing, because now you're seeing something more clearly instead of thinking everything's your fault. Listen, blaming yourself for someone else's bad behavior, that's not good for you. Now, you're being blamed by them too. Again, not good for you. Understanding that it's not you and that someone else's behavior is not okay is really important. And then the nuanced stuff, like the trauma bond with someone where it is good and bad, or normal and bad, or normal, then unsafe, or fun, then scary. That's meant to help you feel more compassion toward yourself for why it's hard to leave. Not because you're weak or a sucker or a fool or a codependent, but because it's really hard to break these cycles. So, presto, a little bit of that cognitive dissonance. We make sense of the messiness of this relationship. We blame ourselves and can't do the hard work of understanding we are in a relationship that has history and high stakes. Perhaps there's children, and that this relationship also is not good for us. But when you paint yourself into the corner of saying, oh, okay, if I could just see them as a monster, I gotta tell you, in most cases, you're probably confusing yourself more. Because perhaps that person who was in the delivery room with you when you had a child together wasn't a monster that day. The person who cheated on you and blamed you for it, they're an asshole. The person who keeps blaming you for the problems in the relationship, I'll give you that they're not healthy. The person that you built a life with for 25 years, it's confusing. The person who remembered your birthday this year and actually invited your friends over as a surprise, though you caught them cheating on you 2 years before, well, yeah, in that moment, inviting your friends over was something nice. When you force yourself to take that complex picture and chronically monsterify or evilify it, it doesn't work. Now, I know some of you watching this are in severe relationships where the monster evil positioning may make more sense. But most people in these relationships aren't, and it muddies the waters of healing to see it that way. And trying to make it so absolute and black and white confuses you more if you weren't already confused. Yes, obviously, if someone was monstrously evil, other than the terror and danger and fear of leaving, if you were in a coercively controlled situation where escape has really been cut off in any realistic way, and your kids are at risk, and your pets are at risk, and you don't have any money, then you are kind of clear on what should be done, but most of the systems in place won't support, and you may not be able to do them. But for everyone else, and that is most people in narcissistic relationships, understanding that this is all very complex and seeing it clearly. It's not just as simple as good versus bad, or as I am a bad person who can't appreciate this person did something good for me, or I'm the one who's overly sensitive, or I just need to see them as a monster. But now I'm a bad person for saying that because they did just bring all the laundry upstairs. I'm asking you to do something a hell of a lot harder that is essential for your healing. This isn't about me protecting the narcissistic people and saying, no, they're not monsters. This is about your healing. See it clearly and complexly. Narcissistic relationships are, as a rule, they're not psychologically safe for the reason that you cannot be yourself. You cannot speak your truth because you never know what's coming next, because you can't grow, and the relationship can't grow either. These relationships and people with these personalities require radical awareness and radical acceptance. You have to have realistic expectations of the limitations and that ongoing sense of grief we have, especially when we have to stay in them. Living in grief every single day for decades is exhausting. Some of you may stay in these narcissistic relationships and disengage and just try to relate to the narcissistic person within the limitations of the relationship. Some of you may leave and sometimes have a nagging feeling or even may miss some of the decent moments. And most of you who leave over time, I'm pretty confident you will feel relief. But forcing yourself to use a damning brush to paint this picture and damning language, it's unhealthy for you. It's okay to say someone's behavior is not okay, that it's unacceptable, and to acknowledge that it is confusing when this person who is in your life, who is narcissistic, who is antagonistic, sometimes does nice things. But trying to force it into an either-or situation can hold you back from making choices and shifting your behavior in ways that are realistic. Let's stop talking about monsters, and let's stay more focused on the middle path, the gray, the nuance, the stuff that doesn't play as sexy on social media. That severe true crime psychopathy stuff, again, it's less than 1% of the population. That's why they make TV shows about it. And when it is happening to you, yes, those words may fit. But for everyone else, for your healing, it may seem cleaner if you can convince yourself that these relationships are complicated and it may feel terrible now and you will be thrown by the good moments. But instead, that these good moments are confusing sunny days, but the bad days are the reality and you have to prepare for them. But above all else, to not blame yourself for someone else's personality. But the more this discourse slides more and more into throwaway words like evil and monster, what ends up happening is we end up having the wrong conversation. And what happens more is that survivors get more and more shamed, and the megaphones for people who are actually engaging in harmful behavior in relationships gets louder. You can balance this out by not forcing yourself to see things in such extreme dichotomies. These relationships are complex, and these relationships tend not to be healthy. But if you can see that gray, and you can see it holistically, you can prepare yourself, you can get yourself the supports you need, and above all else, stop blaming yourself. You got a chance at healing. But don't get so far down this sort of, again, the internet and social media cesspool on this, that you're trying to do this in this simplistic way. I'm seeing so many survivors suffer and beat themselves up because they're like, it must be something wrong with me because I don't see this as evil. Actually, I think it's because you see it clearly. I'm giving you a much more confusing, rocky path. I'm telling you to take the stairs because, folks, there is no elevator to healing. Thanks again.